Zach with the Movie Castle, and today we're going to be talking about Intruder from 1989. Now this movie, I talked about a little bit earlier. I did a list of 10 underrated slashers, and this was on here, as well as several of these. And after I made that list, I was kind of inspired to go back and rewatch some of these slashers that I hadn't seen in a while. And I rewatched Intruder. Now, I'm going to go into more detail here than I did on my in my list. But one thing I did say earlier is there are several movies called Intruder or some variant. There's The Intruder, there's Intruders with an S. This is just Intruder, and this is from 1989, directed by Scott Spiegel. So, the plot, it takes place in this grocery store, and there's this girl named Jennifer who's at the register. Now, she's working peacefully, it's almost time to close, when all of a sudden Craig, her ex-boyfriend, shows up, and Craig has recently gotten out of prison, and he wants her back. She's not too keen on that idea. Anyway, it turns into this whole thing, and the whole store kind of teams up to fight him and kick him out of the store. However, later on, it appears that the people in the store are being watched, so maybe he got back in. So they're going about their closing later on, right? And in addition to all that just happened earlier, there's another piece of bad news. They just found out that the grocery store they're working at is about to close for good. They all have to go find new jobs, and the grocery store is gonna be completely gone. So they're all sad, they're all depressed about that, but they also have to stay later because they have to mark down everything for their going out of business sale. So after that, they all spread out and do their own things. Some work their regular jobs, others are going around marking everything down. But now they're alone, and someone is in the grocery store. Now from there, it kind of has a standard slasher plot. And you wonder, okay, it's just a slasher that takes place in the grocery store. What's the big deal about this movie? And the thing with this movie is, even though it is a regular slasher at heart, there is so much more creativity in this movie than a lot of other movies. This director, Scott Spiegel, longtime friend with Sam Raimi and collaborator, and Spiegel shares a lot of Raimi's interest in creative camera angles and edits and stuff. Everyone talks about Evil Dead, especially Evil Dead 2, how creative, the camera flying around, the camera being the villain. This one, they really also do experiment with fun camera angles. For instance, they put a camera inside a shopping cart that gets pushed around the store. There's a shot where she's sweeping the floor, and rather than just a standard, wide shot or mid shot or something, they actually put the camera below the floor and have a piece of glass that she's on, and she's sweeping the junk off the camera. And there's another really, really cool shot where someone's picking up a telephone, because after, the killer gets kicked out, he starts to harass them by calling, right? And they pick up the telephone, and they put the camera inside the telephone. Now it's actually just a piece of glass, but they have the rotary dial as a circle shape that you're looking through. There's also like a fun edit where someone gets attacked with a knife, and then it cuts to someone in the back slicing open watermelon. Fun, creative things like that, and I don't want to just, go through it and just spoil them all. I just scratched the surface. There's so many fun camera angles, fun shots, and just ways of doing things that other movies don't. And then in addition to that, you get the themed kills. All the kills in here, there's at least something creative going on, you know, with the kills. They'll use things like that little needle that all the receipts get put on, or the box crusher in the back. I mean, you show that, you know that's gonna be used. There'll be like a hand that gets put in a lobster tank, or someone getting stabbed and then the knife accidentally punctures a bunch of these beers and they all go fizzing in the background. Again, I don't want to just spoil and list off all the kills, but there's always a little bit extra with these kills, you know. They're in the back and there's a meat hook. Okay, we can do something with that. And they always try to push these kills just a little farther and be more creative. And it's not just the kills too. They're in a grocery store and they do anything they can think of with the grocery store, you know, talking between the aisles, tossing things over the aisles, reaching through from the refrigerated section through the glass doors, going down the little ramp that's supposed to just be for groceries. There's the little window the bosses can look at their employees and see everybody and what's going on from way up in their the little boss booth. It's so cool, and if you ever have worked retail or in a grocery store, there's a lot of going, oh, I can relate to this. And I mean, I've closed before. One of my past careers or jobs, it was just a job, it wasn't like my whole career. But I've closed a store before in my career, in my job, and that is kind of this weird and fun moment. You like this exclusive group of people that is the only one supposed to be in this dark, you know, place, and you're just sorting stuff, and yeah, it is kind of creepy. And when I saw this movie, I was like, oh yeah, that's what closing a store is like. And it was really relatable, but there's also an interesting element that I wasn't able to fully relate to, and that's the time period. And it really was interesting. You know, it was something I hadn't seen before. You know, I had done a job very similar to this, but this was a new element, and it was all the stuff. This is 89, so all the stuff from the 80s. It's like this movie is a time capsule to what a grocery store looked like in the 80s. And you're like, oh wow, all the prices are just written on the sticker. No barcodes, and look at all the old sign work and the old package designs. And that was really interesting, and it's an unintended effect of the movie. And also, who the killer is finally revealed. He's a really good slasher killer, and I don't want to spoil too much about it. There are some photos, you know, if you look at some of the pictures on the back, little spoilers, but when you finally see who the killer is and what he's doing, and he's a really interesting and memorable killer. And unfortunately, sometimes the box art spoils it. There's actually one version of this box art where it's his face on the front, and it's like, you know, it's warped a little for some reason. I was looking through the photos. But yeah, the other unfortunate thing with this, on this particular copy, he's kind of in the back. You can't see him too well. But this particular copy too, Bruce Campbell, Sam Raimi, right at the front, and this is something I explained in the 10 Underrated Slashers as well. Sam Raimi and his brother Ted are in this movie. They're not the main characters, although they are some of the most interesting characters. But they're not the main characters. And Bruce Campbell only has a cameo in this movie. And the most recent Blu-ray re-release of this simply says, keep an eye out for a cameo from Bruce Campbell. But this one Yeah, this one's the one that oversells. He's in there just a tad at the end. And yeah, this release does oversell that. But yeah, no, they for when they are in there, they're good. But don't think they're the main character, and don't think Sam Raimi directed this. This is his friend Scott Spiegel. But one thing too, and I think this is the last thing I want to say right now. The last point about it, I was reading other people's reviews, and one thing they pointed out, this movie is from 1989, and a lot of the questions people were asking is this the last great 80s slasher? The last great 80s slasher? And well, 89, that puts it as a strong contender. And I know the 80s have been over for a long time, but it's still just kind of sad to think about, like, this is it. This is it. It's the end. After that, you had the 90s, and slashers in the 90s had a journey to go through, and it's a whole interesting part of history. But to think this is the bookend of the 80s slashers, this great genre that I love. that's something to think about. When I was flipping through the IMDb reviews, I didn't know that before. I didn't know it the times that I've watched it, and I read those reviews afterwards, and I'm like, wow, this is the end. But of course, that's not thinking fourth dimensionally. I'm in the future, and I can go and pick up a whole number of slashers that I haven't seen, and the past is open, at least as far as recorded film goes, and more slasher reviews to come on this channel. So this is normally the part of the video where I say what the next video is going to be. I'm not entirely sure though. My family and I are going to go on a late summer vacation. We're going to head down to the beach, and I hope to do a little shooting there. I'm not 100% sure what's going to pan out, so hopefully next time at the beach. Otherwise it's going to be another movie. I'm not sure what. So hopefully I'll see you guys at the beach. Otherwise, another movie. I'll see you guys then. Have a good day.